Welcome to SVG-TV News and Sports for Thursday, January 16th. I'm Jimmy Prince with the details. Prime Minister Dr. Gonzalez says he has taken offense to some comments made about possible bias and the political partisanship of his administration's response in the aftermath of the December 24th, 2013 disaster. At a press conference yesterday on the relief and the reconstruction process thus far, Prime Minister Gonzalez said some persons have been making public suggestions that the distribution of relief supplies is being politically driven, but he said that is not the case.
I rarely find offensive, personally, the suggestion that somehow the political directorate of this country is involved in any political partisanship or bias in the distribution of materials, goods or services. I'm sworn to uphold the Constitution of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Section 13 of the Constitution speaks explicitly to an avoidance of any such bias.
Meanwhile, this country's disaster management organization and its response teams have come in for praise from the executive director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SVG-TV. Jackson, who is also the former Director General of Jamaica's Office of Disaster Preparedness, at a media conference here yesterday, spoke highly of the leadership provided following the Christmas Eve floods. According to Jackson, he is pleased with the work done by Prime Minister Dr. Gonzalez, the National Emergency Management Organization, and other agencies.
I think in the early days of the event, NEMO, SVG stood out front in being very clear in how they wanted to manage this situation. And I think that helped SVG certainly in its interface with the development partners, other members of the humanitarian community, in being able to target support to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Ronald Jackson of SVG-TV. And at yesterday's media conference at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, members of the National Emergency Management Council came together to update the nation on the relief and the reconstruction process since the 2013 Christmas Eve disaster. We get more in this report.
The damage from the 2013 Christmas Eve trough system was initially estimated to cost tens of millions of dollars by Prime Minister Dr. Gonzalez. However, close to a month after the disaster, Prime Minister Gonzalez has upgraded his original estimate to hundreds of millions of dollars.
It is a number which is hovering around 15% of the gross domestic product of the country, which is a significant damage if you take into account that the GDP of the country is in the region of $1.9 billion. You will see that 15%. If you say is 2 billion, 300 million damage would be 15%.
Director of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, Howie Prince, gave a synopsis of his organization's response to the disaster. Prince also made the announcement that some $2.6 million would be needed to feed persons displaced in communities island-wide.
We anticipate that it costs somewhere in the vicinity of maybe over $236,000 if we have to keep these persons there for a protracted period, maybe up to 4 to 6 months. At the community level, that's a slightly different number. We believe, based on our record, that there are 307 families that are displaced. It is going to cost the state $2,667,456.
For the Ministry of Education, they were charged with the responsibility for getting the various emergency shelters in place and shelter managers. Chief Education Officer Luan Gilchrist pointed out that despite the tragic circumstances of the disaster, education must go on.
The students who were directly affected were there in their new uniforms distributed by the Ministry of National Mobilization. The Ministry of Education is working along with that ministry to ensure that the students who lost their textbooks and stationery will have those replaced with the shortest possible delay. With regard to psychosocial support for the affected, the directly affected and those who are affected, let's say as collateral damage, we were able to mobilize our counselors in December, and they worked along with, and they continue to work along with, the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health has psychologists and psychiatrists. We have school counselors.
Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Simone Kiza-Beach, said a number of monetary contributions have been made to the ministry as the main hospital was severely damaged.
So the First Caribbean International Bank, they actually gave us a check of $25,000 last week for the replacement of equipment. Action Beckway, through Lucille Kozia, she also delivered a check last week of $15,000. We also have pledges from other organizations, other international private agencies to help us. The government of Poland and the government of Germany, through other agencies, have expressed interest in assisting us.
And known for their humanitarian services worldwide, Director General of the local Red Cross Society, Bernard Maxman, spoke of his organization's disaster response.
194 buckets, 1,750 collapsible jerry cans. Out of that 1,750, we had already given 600 to CWSA. Aqua tabs, which is the purification tablets, some 1,900 packs of them, and each pack carry 10. Blankets, 491. Food parcels, 509 food parcels that we would have provided.
For SVG-TV News, I am Zulika Lois.
Experts have found that the trough system, which impacted St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Christmas Eve 2013, was unpredictable. Speaking to members of the media earlier today, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves reported that yesterday the Cabinet of St. Vincent and the Grenadines viewed a presentation from an expert from the World Bank who carefully studied the weather system and found that the system was difficult to forecast. The report also stated that the system was one in a 100-year event and possibly one in a 500-year event.
Though he doesn't have all the historical data to come to the conclusion about one in a 500 years event, but he can say quite confidently that it is a one in a 100 years event. And he pointed out, and I saw it on the screen, which he presented, a trough coming from the south and one coming from the north. Each by itself an event which would be normal, but they collided, they came together and created the problem over the north of St. Vincent into St. Lucia, which resulted in extraordinary rainfall at one station at Rabaca, for instance, in excess of 12 inches in 3 hours.
Dr. Gonsalves further explains that his government has also received from assessors here a preliminary estimate of the damage caused by the trough system, which is said to be in the excess of 350 million Eastern Caribbean dollars.
And which number corresponds with the number, the preliminary number given yesterday too by the World Bank experts who are on the ground of $353 million Eastern Caribbean, 131 million US. But that was without accounting properly for the forests and one or two other little areas in which in terms of the physical infrastructure that the chief engineer, our chief engineer, would have been working yesterday evening in consultation with these experts from the World Bank. In short, a damage in excess of 18% of GDP.
Meanwhile, Dr. Gonzalez says while the bulk of the damage sustained from the trough system was to roads, bridges, river defenses, and other physical infrastructure, the Food and Agriculture Organization exports have shown that the agricultural sector, including livestock and forestry, have sustained damage in excess of 32 million EC dollars.
And that the damage and loss to the Water Authority was in excess of 20 million Eastern Caribbean dollars. In the case of Vinlec, in number in excess, the electricity company, in excess of 15 million Eastern Caribbean dollars. I give these numbers, and in the case of housing, over $20 million Eastern Caribbean, but that does not include relocation of the numbers objectively which should be relocated. It is speaking towards the question of the damage and putting right at the spot where they are, save and except for one or two obvious cases where they have been completely destroyed and need to move right away.
Well, in related news now, visiting Prime Minister Gonzalez earlier today was the leader of Martinique, along with other officials from that island. At the meeting at Cabinet Room, Prime Minister Gonzalez announced that next Friday, January 24th, a French vessel is expected to arrive here with a substantial amount of relief supplies. He expressed thanks to the government and the people of Martinique for their continued assistance to this country during this very difficult period. Meanwhile, the Martinique leader says they too have experienced a number of serious natural disasters, and as a result, they understand the importance of halting their regular operations to express solidarity with the affected countries, including St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
First step, we try to react in the most simplified way.
Sur le plan humanitaire.
We focus on the humanitarian aid.
Les premiers secours.
We send emergency aid.
Parce que l'on sait, lorsque ça arrive, soit tempête, soit cyclone, tremblement de terre, la première chose, c'est assister à la population.
You know, the first thing to deal with when you have a hurricane or a bad weather is to help the population.
Donc, avec le soutien de la population et des associations,
and with the support of the Martinique populations and other associations,
on a pu faire parvenir des conteneurs d'eau, de matelas et de nourriture à Saint-Vincent.
So we were able to send containers full of mattresses, water and dry food.
Et je suis très content de savoir que ça fait l'objet d'une très bonne utilisation.
And I'm really happy to know that the aid that we sent right after the
et nous avons fait la même chose
was well used.
À Sainte-Lucie.
And we did the same thing in Saint Lucia.
En plus de ça, lors de Thomas à Sainte-Lucie, on avait envoyé des appareils, des machines d'épuration d'eau.
Which also makes me indicate that even after Hurricane Thomas in 2010, we sent some water purificators.
Minister of Information Technology Camilo Gonzalez says despite the development in ICT here, Vincentians continue to pay too much for broadband services. Speaking at the handing over ceremony of the new state-of-the-art computer lab at the SVG Technical College, Gonzalez said internet services here are overpriced and underpowered.
Let's see who we're behind in the Caribbean now on the price of broadband. Trinidad and Tobago, the Bahamas, St. Kitts, Barbados, Antigua, Dominica, St. Lucia. We're 8th. I have been saying from my first day as a minister that our internet is overpriced and underpowered.
At the function, telecommunications provider Lime announced plans to introduce 4G network in April, which many hope will see the cost for internet service lowered here. A local Christian organization will be holding a crusade as part of efforts to meet the spiritual needs of those who were affected emotionally and physically by the recent flood disaster. Speaking to SVG-TV News earlier, representative of Mount Zion Productions, Jason Providence, said that while it is significant that various communities receive supplies, there is a more urgent need, especially for those who have lost loved ones, to receive healing.
People that are hurting right now because of that disaster, and they haven't been healed as yet. So spiritually they need a healing. They need a touch. They need to feel comforted. They need not only you to bring stuff and present it to them in the sense of food and clothing.
Providence is calling on Vincentians to be a part of the Comfort Crusade, which he said will feature worship, praise, and the delivery of the Word of God.
Inviting you to come out from tongue. I'm inviting you to come out, but don't just come. I'm inviting you to walk with an offering. Let us come into the area that was mostly affected by the storm system, which is the North Leeward end. And I believe that God has called us into Spring Village to bring the message of the gospel, because the message of the gospel is what's important.
The crusade, which will be held in collaboration with Robert Ministries, is expected to take place from January 23rd to the 26th of this month at the Spring Village playing field. A check of $5,000 was yesterday handed over to the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Red Cross by Huffles Ranch. Representative of the bar and restaurant, Mark Cockburn, says the money was raised through a fundraising dance. Several DJs and the police force who offered their services for free, he said.
Time of need, in a time of crisis, that's what happened on the 24th of December 2013. Everybody had to come together and lend a helping hand wherever. Huffles Ranch business, as part of its duty to society, is to give back where it makes from. And we have to also thank the people who came out and put a little extra dollar in the box as well.
Red Cross Disaster Operations Coordinator Julia Simmons thanked the staff of Huffles Ranch for their contribution to the disaster relief efforts here.
Volunteers have been working so hard since December. Miss Latoya Creasy is one of them. We are very happy for your support in terms of this $5,000 check. It will be put to good use, as presently other donors' monies have been put to good use. We have a number of primary healthcare and primary issues that we still need to take care of, and we can assure you we will be giving you updates basically on what we're doing, and we would like your email address to continue these updates, or you can look at it on Facebook or our website and see what we're doing and be pleased about what you've become a part of this afternoon, and we're very happy. Thank you so much.
A Vincentian, along with 2 fishermen of Caracou, was rescued at sea yesterday afternoon. According to a report from Lieutenant Commander of the local Coast Guard Service, Dion Henry, on Wednesday at about 11 a.m. they received a distress alert of a sinking fishing vessel with 3 persons on board, approximately 50 nautical miles east of Caracou. Lieutenant Henry said the Coast Guard vessel was dispatched and the distress alert information was relayed to Grenada Coast Guard and the fishing vessel Morning Mist of Petit Martinique. He said about 1:58 p.m. the partly submerged vessel was found with the 3 persons on board in good health. They are Jody Placide, 26, Regan Stafford, 28, both of Caracou, and Kyron Walters, 28, of Union Island. Lieutenant Henry said the men were taken to Caracou by the fishing vessel Morning Mist.